Hi everyone, my name is Rama. I'm the founder of RMSM Studio and also a registered architect in Virginia. So in this video, we're going to go over how to study while working full-time. I completed my ARE study process while, being employed full-time at an architecture engineering firm. And, there were definitely challenges trying to balance the two and really making time and staying consistent while you have all these different project challenges that can come through, and definitely have busier times or slower times, and trying to make sure that neither aspect suffers. And a lot of people can definitely struggle with that, so I wanted to make this video to sort of help out. So let's get into it. My first recommendation is to balance procrastination and unrealistic goals. You really need to sort of strike a balance with this. Some people can start with being like, okay, no, I'll study later, I'll schedule my exam later, I have a lot of time, I can, just do it eventually when things get less busy. But, we work in the architecture industry, and chances are things will never get, completely not busy. And if you wait for things to sort of quiet down completely, you might never actually start studying. And there's also the opposite extreme where you're just like, okay, I'm going to finish all my exams in like 3 months or 6 months. And those goals can be pretty unrealistic if you're working full time. Chances are you just will not have the hours available unless you're like not sleeping, not eating. And it doesn't sound very healthy to me. I think people can do it. People have probably done it, but I definitely would not recommend it. So you really need to strike a balance between those two in terms of giving yourself enough time to study while giving yourself a schedule that allows you to stay committed and be focused. And my next recommendation would be to create a designated study space for yourself. This could be at your home, this could be at your office if they'll allow it. Whichever space that you can find that really allows you a distraction-free environment to study. I've done a video on the best places to study, which you can find here. And creating that space really gives you a chance to get into your zone of focus when you're ready to study. So you should really look at creating a well-organized environment, a clear and clean environment, so that once you're ready to study, you're studying. You're not moving every 5 seconds. My next recommendation is to consider having a day off. I definitely recommend this to multiple people that I've coached for the ARE exam. It can often feel like, okay, I have to dedicate every moment of my life to studying, and I feel like that's not a very healthy approach. Human beings need to lead social lives. It's an important part of being a person. And so I really recommend taking some time off in order to live your own life separate from architecture, separate from the AREs. For myself, I had that day as Saturday, so I have work all through the week. I have Saturday as my rest day, no studying at all, because I found that it also created those feelings of guilt. So you're never truly enjoying yourself. If you're studying on your rest day, you're like, oh, I'm not really giving myself time to myself. And if you're like going out with people on a day that's not your rest day, you're like, oh, I could be studying right now. So if you have a designated rest day where you can do any social things that you need to do, it really allows yourself to enjoy things without feeling guilty about them or beating yourself up about them. And my next recommendation is to focus on one test at a time. I know a lot of people try to combine tests, especially PPD and PDD, and you definitely can. I think I initially studied for them both together, but what sort of ended up happening was I only gave myself a month between those two exams, and I passed one and I failed the other. So I really recommend you really focusing on one test at a time. If you're taking PCM, just really focus on PCM and just try and get it off of your plate. Maybe one place where this wouldn't work is if you failed an exam and you're trying to study up for that exam before you take your next exam, but still trying to get a little bit of both. People have definitely done that. I think I kind of did that after I failed CE the first time, where I was trying to take PJM, and I sort of did both at the same time in a way there, but I still had one as my main focus. My next recommendation is to integrate your everyday work into your study process. So what does that mean? This means that essentially within your work, you're doing architecture. Chances are, if you're in an architecture firm, you're doing architecture on a daily basis. So, you can relate that to whichever exam you're in. If your project is in the construction document phase, if you're in, the evaluation phase, if you're maybe not working on anything specific and you're just sort of helping around the office with administrative tasks, all of those aspects touch on different parts of the exams. And you can sort of take your exam study materials and see, okay, how are we, figuring out these timesheets? What do the books recommend? What are we actually doing? And not that you're going to argue with people, but you can ask questions about how the firm actually does stuff and compare it to your study materials. And you can also reach out to mentors within your firm. Architects really like sharing their knowledge with others. That's what I found in my experience. So finding a mentor within your office that can explain maybe your past projects or the office's past projects, and the ways that they would relate to a specific exam or a specific construction stage or design stage. So that can be very helpful in terms of making sure that you're still sort of studying as you work. My next recommendation is to create a firm schedule for both your work and your study time, and maybe even your social life as well. I'm a very organized person. I have calendars on calendars and schedules on schedules, but maybe you don't need anything that complex. Maybe you just say, okay, from 8 to 5, I work. After 5, I'm studying, and it can be as simple as that for your work days. But I think mine is a bit more itemized. It's more specific, and I try and organize it around meal times. It's a whole thing. So create a schedule that you feel like will actually work, will be realistic for you, and make sure you organize it around your overall study goals. Like I was saying, set realistic goals. If you're trying to pass all your exams in 3 months, you need to look at, okay, how many hours would I actually need to study to make that feasible? And if you look at your actual schedule, maybe it's not feasible. Maybe you're putting in 40-hour, 50-hour weeks, and it's just not possible. So everything should be based off of what's actually going on in reality in your life. My next recommendation for studying while working full-time is to make sure that you ask for help and support. If you're struggling with balancing everything, definitely reach out to the people in your office. Let them know. Hopefully they'll be supportive of your process and understand the things that are going on. Maybe they can shift you around to a different project, or maybe you can adjust your work schedule so that you can have more time. Just reach out to people and find out what solutions that there are, because if you don't have that conversation, you'll just be suffering in silence, because nobody really knows what's going on with your study journey. Chances are you're doing it by yourself alone. Nobody can see the hours that you're putting in or know how hard that you're working. So it's very important to communicate with the people around you. And another recommendation is to celebrate the small wins, for each exam that you pass. Sometimes each practice exam that you do well on, it's very important to sort of celebrate every time you've had a positive achievement. When I was taking my exams, I think every time I passed an exam, I went out to brunch with my friends, and that was a really great way to sort of celebrate my achievements and also keep my social network engaged in my exam process, so they were very supportive of me as I was taking my exams. So that was the different ways that you can study while working full-time. Hopefully these recommendations were helpful for you. Let me know if you have any additional recommendations in the comments, and look forward to talking to you guys again soon, and happy studying.